I actually quit my job. I quit my day job. And what I would recommend comes down to 3 different things. What gear I use, what lenses I use, what drones I use. We haven't broken up yet. We're still one family. I can't remember the name of it. That's how often I use it. Go away, go away, go away. Psst. G'day guys, and welcome back to another episode at Shoes Photography. We are doing a trip around Australia. The photography side of it hasn't really been forefront. It's turned into more of a family vlog, but you guys are always asking me what gear I use, what lenses I use, what drones I use, what I would recommend as part of my knowledge in the photography world. So I'm going to cover all that today and hopefully answer a few of your questions. Hope you enjoy it. Alrighty, so first things first, this is a bit of a break in normal transmission. At the moment, if you're watching on a weekly episode point of view, we are traveling somewhere up into the tropics of Queensland, the far north regions. But this is about 4 or 5 months in advance. We're a bit slow getting those uploaded. We're currently on the Ningaloo Reef here, just out of Exmouth. Famous Ningaloo Reef, absolutely stunning part of the world. Marine life just off the charts. So that's a little bit as to whether I'm a bit fatter or a bit chubbier or whatever's going on, a bit darker maybe because I've been out in the sun a lot. But I just wanted to start to say, I actually quit my job. I quit my day job as an accountant. For those that know me, for the last 15 years, I've been an accountant. I went to uni, schooling, all that sort of thing to be an accountant. It's probably 14 and a half years too long for me to get out of there. But photography has allowed me to do that and be a full-time photographer only. I only say only because I feel like I've been a full-time photographer for the last probably 3 years when I've been shooting a lot of weddings. I've done 110 or something in the last 3 years from when I said, hey, I want to actually start shooting them. So that's taken off amazingly. And then in the next, well, I've got 2 months of this trip left, and then I'm going back and I've got 20 odd bookings in the second half of the season. But yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to anyone that's ever supported me, to couples in the wedding industry, to people that have bought my prints for landscapes on their wall as gifts. It does humble me to think that my photography and my images are in so many people's houses. To the families and everything like that, or family shoots I've shot, and anyone else that supported me along the way, massive thank you. I cannot thank you enough. If you had told me 5 years ago when I first got into this that I'll be doing this full time and I'll be quitting my job and everything like that, I would have absolutely laughed. I've been rolling on the ground just there, beside myself basically. But it is a dream. I didn't know it was a dream up until 5 years ago that I would be doing that and I could be doing that, but here I am. So anyway, to get into things, I just want to talk you through the gear. As I said, people are always asking me what gear I use, what lenses I use, what drones I use. So I'm just going to run through that, and then at the end I'll go through what I actually recommend for someone that was doing a similar sort of trip. And I think I have thought about it a little bit. There's probably a couple of tiers, maybe 3 tiers that I would recommend depending on what type of photographer you are. So getting into my gear. Camera wise or body wise, I use Sony. When I started wedding photography, Canon were a bit behind the 8 ball on mirrorless technology, and I didn't want to be carrying a couple of big sensors around with me. So I've got a Sony A74 here. I've got 2 A73s up the front as well. That's what I started with in the wedding game, and they're fabulous cameras, although this one at the moment is a bit of a brick. I did drop it the other day and currently going through an insurance claim, which they've accepted. It just does not work at all. I was unlucky to have a lens on it as well, which is also kaput at the moment, but insurance is sort of working through that at the moment, which is lucky for me. Just on that, I do have specific business and photography insurance for those cases, so I can cover my own butt as well. But A74, I upgraded that in the last probably 18 months. It's a beast of a thing. It is a nice little step up from the A7 III, a little bit bigger image quality and everything like that, so I can crop a bit heavier during weddings. It's still light enough that I can carry it around all day and not be absolutely feeling like Popeye at the end of the day with these big guns. So yeah, loving it. I will say I've gone all out too with the audio here. I've got the little lapel mic going because the winds are quite big here, and hopefully this is coming through not loud and clear. So in terms of other cameras, I am filming this on a little Sony ZV-1. It's a good vlogging camera. I'll sort of show you some B-roll footage of that. It's not the camera that I thought it would be for this trip though. I thought I'd be walking around with it all the time vlogging off that. It is good for these situations where you are stationary. We have filmed a couple of episodes on it already when we are sitting down, including the Gib wrap up, Gib River Road. You you wouldn't have seen that yet because we're not up to that. It does pack a punch for the size of it. I just don't like walking around with something else that's a bit heavier. And then from other cameras that I do use, I've got a little Insta360. Again, I don't use that as much as I should. I do use that more home because there is a whole different editing style. They've got their own editing suite that you need to go through. So a 360 camera, I should show you while it's out. It just basically, if I hold it up there like that, there's no aiming or whatever. Everything around me, everything around that camera is getting filmed. And then after the fact, you go in and pick what frames you want, which way you want to be looking at. So it's easy in that way, easy in that you don't have to, like, you can't miss a shot with it, but it is a bit of a steep learning curve and just another avenue that I have to then edit that's different to everything else that I film here from an editing point of view. Great idea. I don't like the quality of it either. It's a little bit noticeable. There is some new ones out since I bought that one, but I don't use that anywhere near as much as I could and I would. And then, of course, everyone probably knows what these are. These are the GoPros. So I've got a Hero 11, Hero 9. I was a bit snobbish towards these before the trip. Probably didn't use them at all. This is, well, I've got it. This is extendable selfie stick, and this is like a floatable one. I have got the media kit on this as well. Just a little wind buffer mainly, which just helps us when we're out in the world for audio. I was snobbish towards them, but since we've been on the trip, the compact size of them, the ease of using them and the stability of them is unbelievable. We probably film 90%, 95% of our clips using those, just because time gets in the way of everything else. When you're on your travels, you're rolling into a new place every couple of days really. Sometimes you might stay a week, sometimes you might stay a night. So you're rolling into a new spot. There's new places to see, things to do, people to meet, people to hang out with, kids to entertain or to school, all that sort of thing. It gets in the way. And I know we are living a privileged life here at the moment, and me saying I don't have any time to do anything, it is just reality on the road. If I did try and film the Hollywood production that I thought I was coming away to film with multiple cameras and different angles and getting everything set up perfectly, something's got to fall out the other side, and that'll be time. And time, that means I'm annoying the kids, I'm annoying mum, I'm annoying everyone basically, because I'm not getting the ease of what a GoPro has. It can go underwater, it can take a beating and still get you some good quality footage. It's not amazing footage, and when I get back, and if I'm vlogging back home when I'm going out on my little photography trips, I'll try and get back into using something with a bit more oomph than them. But for most of the time, I think they're good enough for this family vlog that we're doing. So all right, in terms of lenses, the main lens I use is this. It's a Tamron 35 to 150, so I can go from 35 millimeters right out to 150. So portrait's length is not quite a wide angle, but it's close enough for me. I use this as my main lens on this trip, but I also use it as my main lens in the wedding world as well. It is a beast. It took me probably 6 or 7 months to actually get my hands on it from when I said I'm going to buy it. It shoots at f2 aperture up to 2.8 at the 150 range, which is crazy. From that extendable range where you can be shooting wildlife up close or shooting a more wide angle at 35 millimeters. Now 35 millimeters is about what your eyes see. So your eye vision is about 35, 32 millimeters, and the normal camera on an iPhone is about the same. So when people say a good portrait length is 35 mil, that's because that's what your eyes are used to seeing. If you're using massive wide angle lenses or something that's a bit skinnier with a huge telescopic, you'll actually notice your face changes because our eyes are not used to seeing it that wide angle lens perception or that skinnier telephoto. This lens, it's probably 3.5 gram worth of lens. It is quite bulky for what it is as well, but I can chuck that in my bag when we're going on a hike, when we're going to the beach, whatever we're doing, and I know that I've got a lot of reach, but also just those usual normal perspectives or compositions as well. I love it. In terms of wide angles, if we start down the bottom end, on the Sony A73 here, I'm running a 14mm GM or G Master from Sony. I'm not a huge wide angle fan, even in the landscape world. And when you get introduced into landscapes and everything, wide angle is king. For me, ultra wide angle, it's kind of like if you're going to go hard, go hard. And for me, if you're going to go wide, make sure you go wide. So for me, 14mm, it just means that I can fit some very tight landscapes or astro. Not that I shoot a lot of astro, but it is good for that. I can fit a whole tree in up nice and close and capture the sky behind it. It's good for seascapes. I probably haven't had it long enough to get right into it on the Great Ocean Road like I would like to yet, but it is a very crisp, sharp lens, and it does run the fisheye lens at the front. So that's curved. So you can't put your traditional filters and everything on that for longer exposure and anything like that. They do make specific filters for that if you go down that path. Next one up is the 24mm. Now I did say before when I dropped this as well on it. So this is part of my insurance claim. It just does not work. For whatever reason, it just doesn't, like it turns on, but the cameras, all of them will tell me that, except the one that's broken. The other two will tell me that it's not a compatible or supported lens, which it certainly is. It's a Sony 24 1.4 G Master lens for 1900 bucks. It's not, this is probably more your traditional wide angle rather than the 14mm, but it's just that little bit narrower in the point of view. Again, very sharp, very good around the edges and everything like that, but it's probably a length that I don't use a lot of. I use it at my weddings, especially on the dance floor later at night, because I can kind of get up into people's faces enough that I'm not annoying their dancing, but still capture the shots that kind of end the night well. So from there, I've got my Sony A75mm prime, Sony G Master, again 1.4. This is a beast. This is probably my favorite lens that I do have. But in saying that, it's probably the lens I use least on this trip. The colors, the softness, the sharpness, it's kind of like a dreamy lens really. And I know that sounds wanky, but it is a lens that allows you to really take photos to the next level with some absolutely soft yet sharp colors. I can't explain it any better. I'll just post a couple of photos that I've probably taken on this over the time, probably including weddings. And again, being a 1.4, I can shoot late into the night at a wedding without needing to use flash or anything like that. From there, I've got a macro lens, 105. This is a Sigma. It shoots 2.8, I think it is. It is a 1:1 ratio for macro. Again, I bought this halfway through the trip. So we got to Cairns, which I think we're going to be doing next on our travels, where you're up to on go away, Psst. So I bought this lens in Cairns halfway through our trip basically, mainly because there's a whole nother world that you can shoot when you're sitting in your campsite. There's so many bugs, there's so many birds, there's so many little creatures getting around at your feet. When you don't feel like going and packing your bag and going for a big walk or hike and taking photos, this one is kind of like an incidental lens, I guess you'll call it, or an incidental use. I'll be sitting around, there'll be a cool flyland there, or when the guys were on Cable Beach, they were out riding on the camels and I was just sitting there having a beer watching the sunset, and a little praying mantis come up. So I used this, got down nice and close. The sharpness of this is amazing. You get up nice and close to whatever you're taking a photo of and get those really you can capture that world below your feet that most people don't even see or notice exists. Also good for flowers and things like that. Again, it's got that real softness to it in a professional sense. I love that lens. And then we've got the big fella up here. So Sony G, it's a 200 to 600 mil telephoto lens. So the biggest this one goes is to 150, and then it jumps up to 200. There is a bit of that 50mm gap in between these that I don't have for, and you might be thinking that's a range that's not like it'd be redundant type thing. How often would you use it? I kind of find all the time. I kind of find that I go full to this, and I need a little bit more reach, and then I'll put this on, there'll be too much reach. I'll probably even use this in the second half of the trip anywhere near as much as I used in the first half. It's good for photography from a distance, good for bird life, it's good for things that are out in the distance on the ocean. But yeah, for whatever reason, I just haven't had a need for this probably over the last 2 or 3 months. It is great, it is sharp, and it does do its job when it's needed. It's obviously heavy, it's bulky, it's big, but I do like that it's all internal zoom as well. There's not anything popping out. For example, what I mean by that, there's not anything, when I zoom, this comes and goes. When I zoom in on this, there's no movement. It's all happening internal inside the tube. Yeah, so that's kind of my extent of the lenses that we've got there. I do have a little Tele Converter, 2-time Tele Converter. And what that does, whatever I've got this on, it's just doubling it. So that connects there in between the camera and the lens. Again, it's good without being great. So that's kind of my lenses basically. It is overkill, but I've bought everything. I've bought everything that I've got at home and actually added to it on the trip as well. But I do like having those options. There's not one lens that I don't use or haven't used on this trip, and it's just there for me whenever I need it. Now we'll cut in and just say here, I don't keep these all in a bag. They all live in my canopy, and I'll show you. If you've seen the canopy overview, you might have briefly seen it, but I've got 2 drawers set up that were built specifically for this, and they're fantastic. Like, I use them back home, obviously, for my weddings and everything like that, or when I'm just going out for photos, landscapes along the Great Ocean Road. But it just means that I know where everything is. It's all using pick apart foam, so it's all wedged in nice and tight. We've done some pretty rough roads in the car, and it just held up amazingly. So it just means that I can go to those drawers and I can grab whatever I need and then pack them in a bag. And it might just be a day kit, which also includes snacks and lunch and everything else. And I don't just have my big heavy backpack with all this stuff like I did back home before we come on the trip. It's just there. If we're going away where I'm not going to use that, I don't need to take that. If we're going somewhere where I'm not going to use the 24, I'm not going to use the macro, I don't need to take that. So it's just less weight on my back, and it's very easy and quick to access it all when something arises. While we're talking lenses, I do have some filters here. I've got both the big square ones from Nissi and the twist ones. So I've got an adjustable ND filter, which I think is probably the way to go if you're going to look at ND filters. I think nowadays the big square ones are they're almost becoming obsolete. They're not yet. People that like to sit there and take a photo, and only 1 or 2 photos after they set up their tripod, they work for that. But there is a whole lot of setting up involved in them to chuck them on the front of your lens and get them all in properly and everything like that. But I do like where it's going with the smaller stuff, which is easier to do. You control it. They do have ones now that are magnet to the front, so that makes it a lot quicker as well to chuck them onto the front of your lens. And that's just basically for your ND filter to help with long exposures or to cut sunlight down, or your polarizers to take that glare off the water. I don't use them anywhere near as much as I once did use them in the landscape world, and I certainly don't use them for weddings, but they're there if I need them, and I have used them a couple of times. I'm just not a big long exposure type photographer, and I try and get away from the glare and the water and everything as well when I need the polarizer lenses anyway. While we're talking accessories for the camera options, I do have a tripod there, and I've also got my little Joby Gorilla, what do you call them, Gorilla something or other. I'm not big on tripods. I'm kind of one that goes around shooting and taking photos here, there and everywhere. I do find tripods to be a little bit restrictive or limiting, because you have to set them up, you get them at the right angles and all that sort of thing to take that photo that you've got, and that's perfect. But then as the sun's setting or the sun's rising, for me, I like to just be walking around getting photos as I go, just snapping away, getting down low, getting down high, without having to adjust all the legs and that on a tripod. So my tripod's a KE&F Concept. I got it as part of a promo that I did for them a little while ago, and it's kind of the right size for me. It's quite little in comparison to a lot of landscape photographers, but it's stable enough for me to get the photos that I do take, and the style that I do like. If you take minutes long landscape photos with long exposures, then maybe go something a little bit more stable. But for me, a tripod's not something that I've ever really gotten into, just for those reasons. This little fella here, you would have seen them for all sorts of things. They wrap around things. I do use that a lot, just for time lapses and that, using the GoPros. I quite like it actually. It's small, it's compact. It can go on the camera here with the tripod adapter. It can go the GoPro. I think it's usable. I think it's small enough, light enough that it's decent enough. Couple little audio things here. Again, I bought these away, like I had them already, but I bought them on this trip thinking that I would use them to be creating these masterpieces. I haven't used them all. This is one of the first times I've actually used the Rode I can't remember the name of it. That's how often I use it. But there's a transmitter over there. There's a transmitter sitting in my pocket here, and it connects. I've got a wire going up here to this little mic. I should stop touching it because that'll be coming through on the audio, and it makes audio that crisp and clean in comparison to what the sounds of the wind. There's a towel just there flapping around. Trina and Eva and that are inside here banging away. So it just cuts out all that noise. The only problem is sometimes my beard does scrape on that. So hopefully that's not happened today. All right, so drones, actually lighting. I've got a little lume cube here, which is good for lighting overnight. Again, I haven't used it as much as I thought I would, but I have used it. And we actually use this in Tunnel Creek when we're going through, swimming through the water on the Gib in pitch darkness. And it is worth waiting to see that video, because I did freak out a little bit, and I caught it all on GoPro because I didn't have my Crocs on, like the Crocs that I wear on my feet. Didn't have them on properly, and I thought I was going to lose them, and I thought I was going to lose the GoPro, and I thought I was going to lose everything. I'm freaking out in the dark because there's crocodiles in the water. Anyway, it's something that I look back and laugh to. And before I get into the drones, I've got a bunch of spares. So spare batteries for this. So the Sony A74 and the Sony A73s, they take the same battery. I've got 2 spares on top of the 3 that are already in there. ZV1 that I'm shooting on, got spares for that. I've got, this is just some of them. I've got more in my actual photography bag as well. SD cards, look, for weddings and that, if I ever get one error on a SD card, it goes in the bin. I can't risk whatever's caused that, whatever has happened. I can't risk having that become a bigger issue, even if I format the card properly for weddings. People pay me good money for me to capture the most important day of their life, or one of, and certainly some of the funnest moments they'll ever have in their life. I can't risk having things go wrong with my SD cards. So I've probably got 20, 25 of them, and both the A73s and the A74, they're dual slot cameras. So, and I have them to sync. So that means there's two SD cards in these cameras. When I take a photo, it gets written onto both of those SD cards. And that basically means that if one of those fails, there is a backup in there as well. But then anything in photography world, backup, backup, backup. Well, things are going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong. And then I've got all my GoPro mounts in here. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different batteries for them as well, on top of the ones that are already in there. It's just easy to have spares, not necessarily needed. And certainly with your SD cards, they're not needed from just your normal hobby photographer or someone bringing a camera away on a trip. But for me, weddings and the importance that goes into them, I need to have spares of everything basically. So I can be comfortable and confident. If something does go wrong, I can then replace it quickly on the fly. All right, drones. Up the front here, we've got the little DJI Avata. This is a little beast for what it is. It doesn't handle wind amazingly, but it is FPV. FPV in Australia is illegal. So you put the goggles on. I don't have the controller with me. That's one thing that I did leave home. I've just got a little joystick. I don't use this all the time. As I said, it does struggle in the wind, and there's a lot of windy places in Australia. The good thing about this, you can use it legally by plugging the goggles into a cord that then you can fly it like a normal drone, basically using an iPad attachment, and I can see what I'm flying. It does get some cool FPV footage, and that just basically means you're sort of soaring around like a bird rather than your traditional cinematic rather than your cinematic footage that you get off a traditional drone. These things are definitely not needed, but I do like the variety that it shows you in the footage in some of the places that we go, especially remote places. A couple of spare batteries for that as well. Again, spares for everything. And then finally, I've got my DJI Mavic 3. I started out with a DJI Spark many moons ago. It's kind of what got me kickstarted into the photography world. I made a deal to get on Instagram every day for the year and post something. Post a photo from around the world, around where we live in our part of the world, the Great Ocean Road in Torquay. And that's really what kickstarted my photography. I won a couple of competitions. People started buying my prints, and sort of thought, well, maybe I could take this a little bit further and set up my website, and everything's just sort of taken off from there. So I went from the DJI Spark, which only shot JPEG. I feel like I got every last inch out of that drone. In fact, it was probably, I upgraded to my DJI Mavic Pro 2 way later than I should have, because I thought, well, what else can I actually get in a newer, more expensive drone with what I was already using with the Spark? When I did finally upgrade to the 2, I was like, oh my God, what have I been missing out on? But then the upgrade from the 2 to 3 wasn't as great. Like, I thought this was going to be amazing. It is good. Like the battery life and everything like that is amazing. The low light capabilities of this are better than the 2. And the good thing about the bigger drones, the Mavics, they are heavy, or a little bit heavier. That just means in the wind, they hold up a whole lot better. And for me, that's one of the biggest advantages, I guess, over the minis that you see a lot of people on the road having, or the Airs. I can fly that in any wind, basically. There's no wind that I wouldn't put that up in and actually trust it to come back. It'd be more a bird strike or something like that that is going to take that out of the sky, I think, or me flying through trees that I shouldn't be flying through. I don't have any special remote for it. It's just the stock one. I don't have the screen on that, so it just plugs in to this cord to my phone with the app, like most of the stock drones that you can buy in the market do. That's good enough for me. I don't need anything more than that. And then because they do have a 45-minute battery life, I only got one additional battery. I didn't opt for the second, third additional ones that I've had in the past, because I find by the time I've used 45 minutes of battery, I can get that on charge in the canopy, because I can charge everything out of my second battery and the inverter that runs off the back there, and it's good to go. They actually charge really quick, these do, compared to the Avata batteries anyway. So, and then finally, just a little rocket blower. It's good to clean things off your mirror, or the sensor, clean things off lenses. It should be your first point of call, whether you're a hobby or professional photographer, to clean things up. I will go into more depth with my cleaning in a later video. What I wanted to actually start doing in videos is including some tips, some ideas, some suggestions, all that sort of thing. I want to put that into the weekly vlogs. Now, I haven't filmed them for the 4 months that we've been. Sorry, I'm spotting these flies because the flies have all hatched in the last, I don't know, probably 3 weeks. They've just gone crazy. I haven't filmed these as I've been going. I find my photography expeditions that I go out at sunrise or sunset tends to be rushed. Like there's always something else. We're always going somewhere. Dinner's always got to be cooked. The kids have always got to have something. And that's something I really struggled with early on in these travels, was trying to find that balance between what I was taking photos of and finding the time to do it. But I quickly come around, probably while I was still in Tassie inside that first month, that it wasn't going to be the photography trip that I first thought it was going to be. And I'm okay with that now. There's places and there's times that I didn't take a photo for probably 2 or 3 weeks. But what I want to start doing is actually including those tips, and I could film them now and insert that little tip here and there based on where we were, whether it be how to clean your mirrorless cameras, whether it be how to use aperture properly, whether it's ISO and being scared or afraid to do that, what I recommend when you go out at sunset and shoot in reverse sunsets, all that sort of stuff. I've actually written a list of little tips and tricks. I won't go for too long, but I'll include them in my upcoming videos, just so we can get back to actually having some photography talk in a channel that I call Ash Use Photography, from a person that I feel comfortable in talking about it now. I feel like I know enough, and I feel like I can actually offer people some advice and tips from what I do and what I've learned along the way. So that kind of covers me gear. In the car, which I haven't bothered showing you here, I have got some other stuff like flashes, some more lighting, and that's more for weddings. That did come with me, and one of the reasons I did bring everything was because I'm going straight back into weddings when we get home. I didn't want to have to be guessing if my gear was going to work as soon as we got back home. We're literally rolling a day or two before my first wedding, and I need to know that my gear is working. And that's the same with the flashes and everything I've left in there. They're 2 V1 Godox flashes. They work amazingly. I've got some more lighting, I've got some more rigs and everything like that, but none of it's really applicable for this trip. Neither have I used it. They kind of hide away in the canopy where I don't need to see it at this stage anyway. So, all right, so recommendations. So I have thought about this, and what I would recommend comes down to 3 different things. Now, first one, if you are a photographer back home, whether it's hobby, professional, whatever, and you've amassed some gear, I would suggest that you bring it all. Bring it all on a trip like this. There's that suggestion out there where whatever your hobby is, whether it's photography or anything, bring it on your travels with you. It's not going to stop you doing it on your travels, whether it's knitting, whether it's baking, whether it's, I don't know, anything that you enjoy doing at home, and you will sit down and spend some time each week or each day doing, do it. You're going to be sitting at your campsite. You're going to be sitting around over night time. You're going to have time to do things that you enjoy doing. And if you leave things at home, and that includes gear from a photography sense, if you leave them at home, you're going to be kicking yourself when you get to XYZ place and you don't have that specific lens, or you don't have that specific camera or drone, because the variety that it throws up on a trip like this, one day you'll be shooting in the water, the next day you'll be shooting on top of a mountain. The next day you'll be shooting insects in the dirt to birds in the sky. And you need everything from your telephoto right through to your wide angle and everything like that. You don't need them all, but if you do have them already, I'm saying bring them. The one thing that people do get a little bit maybe lost in, I guess, is weight. Now, weights are important on a caravan, but from a weight point of view, when you are carrying your photography gear around like I used to in my backpack, you're not necessarily doing that all the time. So bring a good lens like this, or bring a, not necessarily a good lens worth thousands of dollars, but bring a lens that got that versatility where you can pack that one lens in your bag and then you know you're covered from whether it be 70 to 200 mils or whether it be 24 to 70 mils, which are common sort of zoom lenses that are out there. If you have something like that, bring something like that, and that can be your go-to lens that you take when you're going for a big walk, a big hike. You don't want to be carrying everything around. But the thing you need to remember as well, in favor of bringing more gear, a lot of the places you're going to be photographing are in front of you. At the campsite right now, we're 100 meters from the actual Ningaloo reef or the beaches. We can walk that way and we can be on the beach right now. So you're not going on massive hikes to get to where you want to take photos. Sunset happens at the place where you camped a lot of the time. Give or take caravan parks, and not always, because they can be in town and it can be a bit limiting as to what you're getting there. But when you're at campsites, you can be in the bush. The birds come to you, the insects come to you. So having that gear sort of stashed away in somewhere else, just ready to go and grab, I find it kind of makes that extra weight worth bringing. So if you're a photographer and you've got gear, bring it all. Alrighty, so the second tier of what my recommendations would be, if you are someone that is just about to buy a new camera, you've got a new camera, or you think that you would actually use it, but don't know anything about it. If you do like to teach yourself new things, if you're happy to get out there and see how this works, see what settings work in certain situations and learn from there, I would suggest bringing it. Don't go crazy with what you buy. Buy something that's a good entry level, that's not your iPhone, not your GoPro, something a little bit better, and then find out what you like in it. Find out what works for you, find out what things you like taking photos of, and actually get to know how it works. Watch YouTube, ask other people. But if you are that person, go out and buy something a little bit better than the standard gear that everyday people would use, because then you'll sort of develop your skills. You'll understand what you then want to go buy and spend the bigger bucks on, because it is an expensive hobby. These things aren't cheap. There's probably 40 grand of gear here, just at a quick glance, and a lot of the time people will go and buy it and not use it. So if that's you in that second sort of range and you're happy to learn something new, go and splurge a little bit. And the final tier is if you are someone that goes out and buys all new gear but then doesn't use it. The amount of times that I've had people come up and see the sign riding my car, Ash Use Photography, or on the caravan, and they say, hey Ash, I've got this digital SLR, I've got this mirrorless, I don't take it out of the bag, I don't know how to use it, I can't get it off auto. If you're that person that goes and splurges before you even think about how you operate and how you go with trying new things, I suggest don't go out and buy that thing. Don't bring it, because it's just going to be a dead paperweight. These things in your pocket, they have got some amazing capabilities now, especially the new ones. This is an iPhone 14 Pro. If you're going to spend some money, spend a little bit more on the camera. So if that's you, get a good phone camera, get a GoPro. You can get kits for these. They're about $500 with a spare battery. Usually get a couple of different, usually get like a floaty or some extra gear with it as well. These are versatile, they're small, you can chuck them in your pocket, you can push a button and they work. With that and that, you're covered on the ground. And then I would suggest you get a drone, not a DJI Mavic 3. That's about 3.5 grand's worth of kit there. Get something small, DJI Mavic Mini, but just make sure it's DJI. Blind Freddy can fly a DJI. They come out of the box and they're ready to go. They are small. If you get a mini, that's about $700 worth, I think, at a last, maybe even cheaper. It might be slightly cheaper. DJI is kind of, Air 2 is kind of in between, but drones or GoPro, that's going to cover a lot of your bases. And then your iPhone. The best camera is the one you got on you, and your camera phone is the one that you're mostly going to have in your pocket doing anything, whether it be sitting around the campfire at night when your kids are running around doing something unexpected and you want to get it on footage, whether you're going on a long hike, anything that you you do on your trip, most of the time you have your camera, your phone pretty close to you. So those are my 3 tiers of recommendations. I do hope that has answered some questions. This is certainly not what you need to bring unless you are that serious photographer and you think that you're going to use it all. Then I would recommend bringing it. But for everyone else, start small and then slowly build it up. You do see some pretty amazing places out here in Australia. There's a lot of variety, a lot of versatility, some beautiful colors that happen. There's sunrises here, there's sunsets there. It is an amazing country to see, and you do want to capture the moments that you spend on these travels, but don't go crazy with it. You don't need it all. Just get out there and love your travels and then extend from that. I hope that helps, guys. I hope you've enjoyed me blabbing away. I hope to put some overlay over some of that talk to show you what some of these are capable of. As I said, I will start doing a lot more of this, hopefully teaching you guys some things on the road and how to improve your photography. But for now, like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching us travel around Australia. I can tell you 4 or 5 months further along than what we are at the moment in far north Queensland, we are still absolutely loving life. We haven't broken up yet. We're still one family. It is a great lifestyle and I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. I don't know how we're gonna go back home in 2 months' time. Gonna struggle with that. Back to the real world. Cheers, guys.